Welcome to I See You, a podcast where we know that human connection restores mental health and resilience. I'm your host, Julie De Jesus, and I see you. Let's be friends. Welcome to the I See You podcast. We're happy you're here. This is a podcast where we talk all about and tell stories of how human connection restores our mental health and our resilience. And today I'm very excited. I have our guest and my friend here, Bryan Cooper. Welcome to the podcast, Bryan.
Thanks, Julie. It's good to be here.
So I want to start, just tell our guests a little bit about you.
Well, I am a husband of an amazing wife, Amanda Rose Cooper. She's incredible. You should check her out online. But she is kind of my rock, and I absolutely love that woman. We have 4 children. So we have a 16-year-old, 14, a 12, and 11. Amazing kids. So grateful. And that's really my world right there, is just my family. I love them. And that's one of the reasons why I love personal development so much, because I know that when I, grow more as a person, I can be more for them, which is the whole purpose. And, but serial entrepreneur, owned my own businesses. I grew up with my dad's company, and he was an entrepreneur, business owner. He ran his own businesses and then taught me kind of the trade. And then I just kind of stepped into that. So I flipped investment properties, invested in a lot of different businesses over the years. One in particular, my wife and I got into was network marketing, and we build teams. And that kind of our passion is building teams, building people. And then also along the way, you realize that kind of a business, it's more like personal development with a compensation plan attached. Mm. So I've gone more heavy into the personal development training and coaching and speaking. And I love learning more about me and then teaching other people about it. So really my passion is helping people grow, understand who they are. And so I'm diving into the speaking arena, taking a book that I wrote just recently and going on tour with it. I have a huge passion to help people really understand who they are at their core. That authentic piece is the most important thing that we could ever do. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
I feel like the way you explain yourself is really authentic to what I have experienced just as I've coached you as a speaker. And just from day one, your story really struck me. Just the journey you've been on to find that personal development, to restore your own mental health. As you and I we've connected on, we both had times when we were really low and really struggled to find any purpose in life, and just the resilience that you've exhibited. And not just, in the first couple seasons of my podcast, we talked a lot. We had a lot of really high stakes conversations about mental health, about specifically suicide ideations, about things like that, which are important to have. But what I love is that there is not just, is there a beyond these hard feelings, but there is like a better life than you ever imagined. And I feel like you embody that really well. We're not just here to just survive life. We actually can be happier than we've ever known, maybe in part because of the darkness we've known. And when we learn that, so just before I give away too much about you and your life, just tell me about a story about a time when you have felt seen in this process.
So I'll take it back so you have a little bit of context to understand why this would be so important.
Yeah.
And being seen and heard in this particular way. I was in a profession that I did not like. So I grew up in a family business, but sometimes you don't like the family business. And I lived it and I worked it for years. It brought me no passion. And one day when I was trying to figure out, could I do something different with my life? And I finally made the decision, and there's a bigger story behind that I probably won't have time to get into, but I was searching for a way to get out of what I was doing. I had no idea what that looked like. And when I set that intention, because everything needs to have an intention behind it. And if you're going to change anything in your life, set the intention, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to find. And I did that, not knowing how important that was at the time. But when I said, I'm going to figure this out, this may be a couple weeks later, I was sitting down in church and I had this aha moment, something that I could do, something that was completely different. And it scared me. And also at the same time, I thought there's no way that that's even possible. I cannot do that. And I kind of just shirked it off and went back to work. And then the next week, sat down in the same spot, same time, same vision. And it happened a third time. But I brushed it aside and just kept working, doing my thing. And then my wife and I changed business models and we started doing that marketing. And we had a lot of opportunities just to get in front of people and share the opportunity and talk. And that's kind of where a little bit of that, speaking comes into play. But I loved investing in people. I loved talking. I loved speaking. But I didn't think I was very good at it. And I didn't think I had a whole lot of value in that particular arena. So we just kept doing our business over the years and working on just growing people, growing our business. And we put on this event and we had about 600 people show up. We brought in some really phenomenal speakers and I ended up emceeing the event. And at the end of the event, we were talking to some of the speakers. The one guy came up to me. He's like, Bryan, you have a really unique way of talking to people in front of the crowd. And I think you should get out. You should start speaking to people because I think you'd be a great speaker. And the vision that I had sitting, in that seat at church years ago was getting in front of people, speaking and changing lives. And why that, I just never thought that was anything possible. I was a construction guy. Who would listen to me? But when he said that, I, for the first time, felt seen in an area that maybe I could actually do this. And it really changed my life because from then on, I started to have more confidence when we would get on stage and start to speak to people and, looking for more opportunities to share. And so it was just something that really, I think it was a change that happened just from one person noticing me in a particular way and saying something about it. So I really felt seen and heard in that particular way, and it changed my life.
That's so neat. There's something so powerful, I think, about having people just recognize the strength in you. Like I don't know, it's just interesting as I've coached different speakers and as I've spoken around the country to people that frankly make a lot of money, which is sometimes how we put value on intelligence, on talent, on things like that. And to see the imposter syndrome still show up, like it never goes away, but to have someone else to speak truth and be like, hey, you're really good at this, sometimes is the permission that we didn't know we needed, that we're looking for, to be like, oh, I am good at this. I can do this, which is huge. And for your mental health, I mean, you didn't specifically say to that, but like the confidence, right? The confidence, that the mindset shift that brought.
And it also led me to one of the steps that I created in the book that helps create transformation in your mind. And it's actually putting yourself in the driver's seat and you being the one to encourage you, because we're looking for outside validation all the time. But unfortunately, it doesn't always come. And we have to learn to not rely on outside validation. We have to actually take the responsibility on ourselves. And that's why one of the practices is just simply getting in front of the mirror. If you've ever read the book, The High Five Habit by Mel Robbins, phenomenal book, she touches on that beautifully. And it's getting in front of the mirror, giving yourself a high five, praise, and that acknowledgement that, hey, if I need praise, if I need encouragement, I've got to be the one to step in and do it myself, because I shouldn't rely on somebody else. And if I rely on somebody else, in the wrong place. So we should never look for outside validation from someone else. We're not willing to give it to ourselves in the first place.
Oh, I love that. Well, let's go very off script here. I have a question for you, which is, I was talking to my husband about this the other day. I was playing pickleball with some girls and they came and I was like, hey, my name's Julie. And they both were like, oh, we know who you are. Like, we follow you online, which is funny to me because I don't feel like I have that big of a following. There's always a bigger following, right? They're like, oh no, we've heard you speak. We know who you are. And I'm not going to lie to you. I had this little like, oh, that's like kind of cool, And then later I was telling my husband, who's not on social media at all. He's like, he's very unaware and he's just like no respecter of persons. Even when we were dating, I feel like I would like intentionally try to name drop sometimes. And I'm embarrassed to admit that, but it's the truth. I was like, oh yeah, like I know the governor, like these little experiences I've had. And he was just like, cool, like did not care, right? And my question for you is, I was asking him this of like, what do you do with that? What do you do with, because outside validation, it does feel good in the moment. And yet, I'm sure you can relate to this. I've had times where I was receiving a lot of outside validation and I'd get in my car and I'd bawl the entire way home because I was going home to an empty house. It's not enough. It's not lasting. What do you do with that? Like when people tell you do a good job, does it do something for you, or have you learned to just not have it really mean anything?
I remember Wayne Dyer talking about this, and he said, I got to the place where I love outside validation. It's great. I love the accolades. I love the praise, but I had to get to a place where I didn't need it. And that's what the difference was, is when you, and that's why we need to reinforce who we are by getting in front of the mirror, by being grateful for who we are. Because when we solidify that and we can see ourselves as that really, truly amazing, authentic person, and you know your value, then the outside validation is just fun, but it's not needed.
I like that. It's just fun, but it's not needed.
In our world today, do you ever feel like real, authentic human connection is becoming less of a certainty and more of an anomaly? Well, good news. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm Julie De Jesus. I'm a keynote speaker, an author, and a corporate trainer. I speak all over the country about how to utilize human connection to improve mental health, resilience, and even work performance. If you know a group looking for a speaker, you can contact me at julie-dejesus.com.
And this, I remember a time when I was really struggling with this idea, and it's coming to memory now, and I want to share because I'm like, oh yeah, this is the answer. I was struggling with this idea of I don't want to be prideful. Like I don't know what to do with this liking that it's like growing up, I didn't think I had any talents. And then once I started getting recognized for some, I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, oh no, I'm bad. I like how this feels to be recognized. What do I do with that? And especially as a Christian, which I want to talk to in a second, because you and I both share a deep belief and commitment to Christ. I wrestled with, what does it mean to be humble? What does it mean to share our gifts? And I remember sitting in a place that's sacred to me and just thinking about this idea and praying and meditating and thinking about it. And I had this feeling like, is it okay that I show up? Is it okay that I do what I'm good at? Is it okay that I like to feel like I'm doing a good job? Which to some people, they're like, this is silly, but this is the overthinking that was going on that I didn't know what to do with. And just the feeling that came over me was like this powerful warmth of like, you're amazing. You're incredible. Like, actually, Julie, you are way more amazing than you could even possibly imagine. And which was was not what I expected. And then it's almost like the feeling had a ... to it. It was like there was a pause, and then the feeling was, and so is everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, is that incongruence with what you felt? Like for me, it's not so much that it's a problem to be proud of ourselves but it's recognizing that we are all capable of that.
100%. And we should be proud of ourselves. We should get up in the mirror or get up every day and like, I'm really grateful for me. And I know I'm growing. I'm not perfect, but if you love who you are, I think you're going to be more effective in life. And that's not pride. That's just, I think, a healthy way to think in general.
Yeah.
Which I don't think enough people think that way. I think a lot of times we dismiss who we are. We don't truly know who we are at our core. And so we don't know our value. And if you don't live authentically who you are and understanding your value and really just being grateful and admire who you are, I think it leads to more problems.
I love that. And I want to bring into the conversation our commitment to Christ. This is not a Christian podcast. This is not a religious podcast by any means, but I think you and I both feel strongly like it's important to just authentically show up with who we are, what's worked for us, what hasn't. We have guests on here that are atheists. But for you and I think we're in an interesting situation, an interesting dynamic where we both live in a state where it's predominantly one religion, right? And that's the religion I'm a part of, right? The LDS faith. And you are not a part of that faith. You're a deeply committed Christian you go to a non-denominational church here in a state that is, like I said, very heavily influenced by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Talk to me about what that experience has been like for you, having a deep commitment to Christ, but also being surrounded by people that all predominantly go somewhere else for that, and how you've been able to connect and how that's been an interesting experience for you.
Well, moving here, I didn't really know exactly how religious it was.
Yeah.
And you come to find out that, wow, it's is predominantly, LDS culture.
Yeah. Yes.
Which we love. Our best friends are LDS. And what I found is that you can maybe have some differences in theology and differences in some of the ways that you approach your faith, but there's commonality, and there's also a respect that you just have for one another. You should be able to share with any religion across the entire world, be able to sit down and have a conversation, and it be loving, and it can be cordial, and it can be just trying to understand people from their point of view, where they were, where they were in their faith and how they were brought up and their perspective. It really actually just opened my mind to have a more open mind to other people and where they came from and their backgrounds, and trying to understand them, because ultimately, we're all children of God. I mean, every single person in this world.
Yep.
And how we approach that comes from different areas, from different perspectives. But I think just being able to sit down and love people for who they are, where they're at, and try to understand them is one of the best things that you can do. And it's not about pushing your faith or pushing your ideas on somebody. It's really just loving people where they're at. Because I came from a very, I would say sometimes judgmental type positioning, like judge other people when they're, from a different religion and they have different ways, and you're like, well, they're just wrong. And
was this coming here, or you just mean in general in life?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Life growing up. And so over the years of just growing and maturing, but coming into a culture like this, I'm like, wow, there's so many really good things here, and so many good things about what they're doing, and we have to love and respect that, and just understand where they are and meet them at that level.
Well, and I love that it's what a sad thing it can be if we make that for a reason for divisiveness, which is so opposite of what we all, I think, deep down to our bones are
100%.
Committed to.
Yes.
And so I think it's a really interesting thing that can happen, that if you look at closer, you're like, how did that happen? Like, how could this possibly make us divisive to respect and share beliefs and interests? And like, none of us have it all figured out. When we die, we can talk about this. We're like, what? But it should be, I just feel like the more you know, the better. Like the more religions I understand, the more cultures I understand, I get closer and closer to what I think of as like eternal truth, because it has to be true for everyone, whatever it is, right? Whatever truth is, it's I believe it's truth. It doesn't change. So if I can't handle listening to other people's beliefs or things like that, then I don't know, it gets like some weird fear and things like that. And so that's something I've always appreciated about you, is I feel like I can ask you anything, and it's a very comfortable, easy conversation.
I think one of the things I realized is that, especially in the personal development world, is so many of the things that we believe, and this is all of us, may not be true. And we don't know that. We have to discover truth. And so everybody's on that journey, or at least I hope they are. And that's what my book, and that's what I get up and I talk about, is I want people to discover truly who they are, because there's lies that we believe. Because they're passed down from us from other people. So the majority of our life and our programming comes from other people's beliefs, and we have to challenge those beliefs. So we really can't sit down and judge anybody else for where their beliefs are, because some of them aren't their own. Some of mine are not my own. And it's up to me to be responsible. Like, who am I? Like, who did God create me to be? Why am I here?
Yeah.
And that's the question that I need to ask. And it's not about other people and where their path is. It's really about, I got to take responsibility. And
no one can do it for you, is the hard and freeing truth, I think, to some degree.
Yeah.
What if for someone listening, for me, because I always love hearing your wisdom, a lot of our coaching calls, I often feel like I'm like trying to coach you as a speaker, but then I'm like, wait, actually, just tell me more. You think about this, because you've worked hard for this knowledge, and I really respect that. What's one action item for someone that's feeling disconnected from people, from anything, just from life? We both felt that disconnect, feeling disconnected, and they're like, yeah, I do want my mental health to be in a better place, and not just that new level of resilience of I want to have a life like you're describing, where it's better than I thought I could have. What's one action item they could do that has helped you?
Gratitude is what shifts things the fastest from a negative place to a positive place. And when we're struggling with our mental wellness, gratitude is the thing that's going to change it the fastest. And so when you can get in a state of gratitude, and it doesn't mean that your days are going to be perfect, but when you can wake up in the morning, I'm grateful for me. And if you can just try to find something good about you every day and just show up, and you'll have a different day. And then how you approach everybody else is going to be different because you decided to be thankful for who you are first, and to acknowledge yourself on a level that's usually, unfortunately, negative. But if we can step away from that and start our day out with, I like this phrase because it's so helpful. When you get up and you just simply say, what's the best that can happen? You wake up every single day and that's all you ever say. What is the best that can happen? And then you just whisper that to yourself throughout the day. Your life will be totally different.
What's the best that could happen?
Because most of the time we approach life, and I don't know where this saying comes from, but what's the worst that could happen? When you try to set a goal or do something you are unique, what's the worst that could happen? Who came up with that? No, that's completely reversed. Let's flip that.
Yeah.
You get up and just say, what's the best that could happen? And your life will change.
I love that. And the name of the podcast, I See You, it really is something that became a mantra to me at a hard time. I had a friend that gave me a steel cuff that said, I see you. And there's stories about that in the first couple seasons of the podcast. So I'm not going to delve into that. But as far as a mantra, I think that's something that could be really helpful. I know for me in my healing, that was one of the first things the therapist had me do is, what's the thing that you're going to say to yourself to get you through this week? For you, what's been a powerful saying or mantra in your life that you repeat to yourself?
I don't know if it's like one particular mantra.
We've probably had a lot. I mean, you just showed us one already, right? That question of what's the best that could happen?
Yeah, it's just little phrases and things that I keep in the back of my mind and that I speak about throughout the day. Sometimes when I'm feeling not like I should, thinking negative thoughts, we all work and battle through those. It's remembering those moments. But the one thing that I'm desperately, I would say desperately, but actively and excitedly seeking is really truly who I am, because I know that person is truly incredible. And the way I see it is there's only ever been one person that truly lived authentically, and that was Christ. He was the only person that came and completely filled his purpose to a T. And his purpose was ultimately to offer forgiveness for everybody. And that is, it's truly amazing. So for me, with him being my hero and aspiring to be like him, how can I live that out in my life? Show up every day as my authentic self. My goal is to figure out who I am, because I know that if everybody just did that, that's when wars would go away. That's when poverty would disappear. That is when all the problems that we face in the world is people not knowing who they are. And if we would just change that, then the world would change. And so that's, to me, it's live your authentic self. Be passionate about that. Every single day, pursue who you are. And I think that's when we can ultimately change the world. So that's just how I approach my day. And I don't know if it's necessarily a mantra, but that's how I am choosing to live.
We'll take it. It's working for you. We'll take it. Bryan, where can people find out more about you and what you do? Because you do a lot of powerful work.
Yeah. I'm Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, The Bryan Cooper Show on YouTube, and Apple Podcast. My Facebook handle is just Bryan Cooper 490, TikTok at Bryan Cooper 490, and the same with Instagram. But yeah, you can follow me, and
awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to share more. And
cool. Yeah, and we'll link all that in the show notes for sure. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here for another episode of I See You.
Okay, let's be real. Sometimes what I think we need to restore our mental health more than anything else is just a break, which is why I think I need a vacation. And so do you. Join me and my special guest, Tony Overbay, on the first I See You Living Cruise, the mental health cruise of a lifetime. Check out and make sure you grab those early bird tickets at julie-dejesus.com/cruise. And guess what? You don't even need a babysitter. Kids set sail free. julie-dejesus.com/cruise.